If you want to be a millionaire, we cover real estate investing on this podcast. And normally we cover wholesaling real estate, which is a great beginner strategy for somebody who's looking for their first deal, may not have tons and tons of money that they can just buy 20 rental properties, no problem, but they want to build their skills and get paid for doing so. Well, in this episode, we've got a special guest of what comes after wholesaling. How can you put those deal finding skills to the test to build long-term wealth, not just big chunks of cash in your bank account today? So you're going to sit back and enjoy this episode. I've got a feeling. And it's with Nate Barger. He's actually created something called the BRRRR Invest Academy. So he's going to talk about a strategy called BRRRR Investing, which is buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat, which is a strategy that I personally use. So sit back and enjoy. My name is David. I'm the founder of DealMachine, an app and podcast for helping you quit your 9-to-5 and replace your W-2 income through wholesaling real estate. And today I've got my co-host with me as well, Ryan Haywood, who is honestly one of the best success stories that I know. In 2019, quit his job, took a wholesaling challenge in 14 days, made $8,500, and he's done 425 deals since then. And together, we're in conversations with Nate Barger. What does that feel like to have, knowing that at one point in your life, you had literally nothing and you were actually dealing drugs and in jail with pretty much none of that?
I mean, once you get so much material stuff, man, it just doesn't really do anything else for you. And I always had money, man. When I was selling drugs, I was selling a lot of drugs. You know, I was selling like 330 pounds of weed at a time. So, you know, I was making $250,000 when I was 22, 23 years old every trip. And so you don't think about money the same. You're like, money's nothing. I'm always going to make money, but you get a little ego and arrogant and you think you're always going to make money. Then you realize, like, man, it ain't like that. You ain't always going to make money.
And you said you actually lost everything. Was that because you got in trouble?
No, I lost everything because I stopped selling drugs in 2004. Then I started to do real estate. And so I started doing real estate. I started doing the BRRRR method, but back then we didn't call it the BRRRR. We called it cash out refi. We was like, I'm going to do a cash out refi. That's what we called it. And so, man, I bought a bunch of properties, but I bought wrong. I bought in crappy areas. You know, I bought the stuff that people think you buy. Let me buy these cheap Section 8 houses. What are cheap for a damn reason? So you buy them and you're all in them for 30 grand, 40 grand. And, you know, they're worth 60, 70 when you're done and you rent them out. And, you know, as you own properties, man, you got to understand that wealth is not built off cash flow. I could care less about the cash flow. I got an asset that I bought in 2019 for $17 million that has given us probably, I would say, $60,000 a month in cash flow. So, you know, what, 720, it's say $750,000 a year, you know, for 5 years. What is that? A little over $3 million bucks?
Yeah.
Dude, I just got my appraisal. My appraisal came in at $45 million.
Wow.
Right?
That's where, yeah.
Yeah, I don't give a damn about the cash flow. People stay poor because they think you're buying real estate for cash flow. And my students, they get in like, I'm going to do 4 a month. I'm like, what the hell? You don't got to do 4 properties a month. You need to get 30 properties. And you can retire for the rest of your life. If these 30 properties on average are worth $200,000, that's $6 million worth of assets. If we can identify an area that's going up 5% a year, 5% of 600,000, I mean, 6 million is 300 grand. Dude, you're making 25 grand a month, right? In appreciation. We talked about the cash flow, the principal reduction, the tax incentives. That's where the real wealth is made, is really in getting in debt. But in America, we're taught to stay poor.
Yeah. Man, that's a fantastic intro to your story and compelling for our listeners to hear. I wanted to just step back real quick and make sure you knew, I don't think you've met my co-host, Ryan Haywood, by the way. So he actually...
Hey, I'm going to plug you guys, too. I'm going to get you guys on, you know, Joe Fairless?
Oh, yeah.
You've been on his podcast?
We have not been together, no.
Okay.
I was on it a long time ago.
Okay. So my Joe's out of Cincinnati. And Joe has he has a hell of a lot more real estate than me. He has about 2.7 billion worth of assets. But my buddy Ash is real good friends. Me and Ash are real good friends. He comes over here all the time. And me and Joe are okay, but Joe's an introvert. You'd get along good with him. You guys are home, you know? No, I'm just kidding. But Ash, you know, he runs that podcast. So it's called The Best Ever.
Yeah. Ooh. No, thanks for the mention.
Out here, man.
Would definitely love to connect with Ash. I wanted just to give you a little thanks for coming on today, by the way. And I know you said you have a call as well. So just wanted to jump and give you a quick intro. So Ryan, he actually quit his job in 2019. I mean, I love telling his story while he's just listening to me tell it. It's funny. Winner. He quit his job in 2019 because he was making more than his boss. His boss restructured his commissions, and he was jealous of Ryan. Started sending Ryan to these conferences. He normally sold internet or telecommunications, and he started selling to Ryan at these conferences where Ryan would never sell anything. So they're wasting his time, cut his commissions. So Ryan quit, and he was having his third baby pretty soon. So he needed to find a good solution. He took a 30-day challenge. Did his first wholesale deal in 14 days, made $8,500. Thankfully, he was able to use DealMachine to help get that deal done. And he's done 425 in St. Joseph, Missouri since then. So definitely been one of the top DealMachine stories and co-hosting the podcast with me for that reason. He actually sent me your Instagram last week, and he's like, dude, do you know this guy? And I was like, yeah, I know this guy. He's like, dude, if you could get him on the podcast, like, that would be incredible. So just wanted to let you guys know that. And I know he's got a lot of questions for you as well. So Ryan, take it away, sir.
Yeah, I don't.
Appreciate you. Great to meet you, Ryan.
Yeah, man, you too. I don't typically get Taylor Swifty with people, but I was talking this morning on my Instagram that you are.
Is that? I mean, what?
No, you were one of the Instagrams that we followed from the very beginning, and even early on, you and I had passed a couple messages without knowing each other. And so your responsiveness was motivating for me. It was helpful for us to keep pushing through, and we've watched your stories, you know, all the time. So it's really cool to have you on. I won't
honored to be on it. Yeah.
But I know a little bit about your story, but what I want to know is what drug you, like, what got you into real estate? What was it that was that trigger to say, you know what, I'm going to do real estate? I know the prison story, like, were you there? And it was like in prison, I found out real estate. Tell me about that.
Man, so I got to go back a little bit farther just so it all makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So I grew up in normal blue-collar alcoholic family like a lot of Americans, right? That were my age, born in the 70s. You know, parents were alcoholics, had the kids really young. Just, you know, they didn't know. I mean, they come from big families. They were neglected themselves, didn't have any emotional intelligence, high anxiety. You know, one of my parents had high anxiety. My other parent was absent. Both were alcoholics. My dad was a working alcoholic. My mom was a stay-at-home alcoholic. And, you know, so we just were heathens, man. And they moved into this neighborhood where it was probably middle class, but then it became very poor, like Section 8 moved in. And any parents in their right mind were like, I'm getting my kids the hell out of here. Well, not my parents, because they were drunk. They didn't understand what's going on. And so at 4 years old, my father, he hung me over a dam by my ankles. And, you know, I thought he was going to kill me. And so that gave me PTSD. And it really made me different from other kids. Like I wasn't outgoing like I am now, but just be kind of like watching everything. I never knew why. And then I remember I started peeing the bed. And my parents were like, there's something wrong, you know, because I stopped peeing the bed. And then when he did that, I started peeing the bed again. I didn't know why. And this didn't come out until I was in my 30s working on that. So I went from there and then to being a bad kid to getting in trouble, getting sent away to a children's home, meeting kids in there, getting out, coming out of there at 91, brother, the height of the crack epidemic. My neighborhood was infested with crack. and start selling drugs on the street corner, man, selling drugs. And by the time I was 16, man, I had 2 crack houses. And, you know, I was becoming a decent-sized drug dealer. I never got really big. And by the time I was 17, I caught my first felony. I got probation. That was drug abuse. Got caught with a little bit of crack. They kicked in the crack house door, and, you know, I didn't serve it undercover or anything. And so then I caught another case about a year later. I didn't know what to do, man. I was totally lost, man. My brother and them would go out and rob stores at night. And I went on a run with them one time, and, you know, they would break in these stores and they would steal the cash registers and these black boxes that held all the lottery money in it. And I remember, you know, the alarms going off, and I'm the getaway driver. Because I'm like, they're like, oh, you can't sell drugs if you got caught. And I'm like, well, I'll just go out with these guys. Oh, bro, that was the worst experience in my life. I was like, there's no way I can do this. I don't know how you guys do this. I'm watching the alarm go off. They're still breaking into place. My brother's pointing the gun up, telling somebody to get back in the house. And I'm just like, I just wish they would come. And then so they come running, and they got the lottery box. And we go down the street. The cops are flying by us. And we get down to White Castle, which is, you know, burger joint. And they busted open, and there's $14 in there, man. And I literally, like, there was 5 of us. And it was like, no big deal. It was like, Nate, you hungry? I'm like, dude, how could I be hungry? I'm the fattest person in here, and I can't be hungry. Like, and so I decided, hey, man, maybe I'll just go back and sell drugs. It's a lot better than this, right? And my dad's working 80, 90 hours a week on a railroad, and he's broke, so I don't want to go do that. I'd rather take a chance of making some money selling drugs. And so, man, I just wasn't very good at selling drugs, man. I caught another case, went right back to prison. You know, I ended up getting 18 months. I was out 57 days and caught another case, brother. I mean, I just sucked at being a drug dealer, man. And so I got sent away to Noble Correctional Institution. That's in Ohio. And I got sentenced to, actually, I plea bargained for 2 years. I was facing 5 to 25. I went in front of this judge. His name was Judge Cardellano. And I plea bargained for 2 years. And I went in front of the judge. He said, do you have anything to say? And I said, Your Honor, I just asked that the courts have mercy upon me. I was like, I got a drug habit. I need help, Your Honor. I'm willing to do anything and everything within my power. I was in prison. I was going through the programs. I got out. I got a problem. I just need help. Man, this judge, I promise you, they said he was the worst judge. He's going to stroke you. He sentenced me to 1 year. I copped out to 2 I didn't even know they could do that. And so, you know, here I am again, you know, going back to prison. But, you know, luckily I didn't do 2 years. I only had to do 1. So I get in there and I'm walking around the track and I meet some guy. His name's Chris Hemsworth from Columbus, Ohio. I don't know whatever happened to him, man. But he's telling me his buddy got busted. And I'm like, yeah, we all got busted. That's why we're in here, brother. Right. And I was like, what did you get busted with? And he's like, 13 tons of weed. And I grabbed his shoulder. I was like, brother, do you know how much weed I can sell? No, I had never sold weed at the time, man. I was selling crack, right? And so, and I never did drugs either, man. I never did drugs. I never did cocaine. I never did crack. I probably smoked weed 3-4 times in my life. So I didn't really have a drug problem. That's just what I was telling the judge. That's what all us drug dealers told the judge, right? And so, you know, I went on and got out, and then my mom called me one day. She said, hey, Nate, some guy Chris called because he got released after I did. And he wanted your number. I wouldn't give him your number, but I got his. And I called him. I was like, Chris. He was like, are you ready? And then I knew that he was serious, right? Yeah. And we went down there, and we were down there like 2 weeks, man. I mean, I was like, dude, are you guys playing games? We were in Austin, Texas. They ended up giving us 96 pounds. That's all they could fit in the truck of our little monster. And they fronted it to us. Man, I sold that weed so quick, and that's when I started selling weed, and I was making pretty good money. And then I almost got busted, man, and I started a roofing company. I was trying to start. I didn't want to be a drug dealer. I just didn't know what else to do. You know, by the time I was 22, I had 4 felonies, man. Like, who's going to give me a job? Nobody. Yeah. I was unhireable. And I thank God I was unhireable, and it's the reason I tell people, get rid of plan B. Because if you only have plan A, you're going to make plan A work. If you have plan B, you're going to do plan A and you're going to spend 4 or 5 years and you're going to fail. And then you're going to go to plan B and you're going to fail. And then you're going to go, I don't know what to do. Stick to one thing. Be good at it, man. Which you probably experienced, Ryan. And so then, man, I went on and I started this roofing company and I was trying to find a way to just do something legit. And I mean, I was making $100,000 a year, but dude, I was a drug dealer. You know, I'm used to making money. I can't live off $100,000 a year. By this time, I developed a really bad drinking problem. I was a womanizer. You know, I was just a flashy drug dealer. I mean, I remember doing my budget. My budget, brother, I was so reckless. $57,000 a month is what it cost me to live. I was reckless, man. I mean, I just would go out drinking at the bars all the time. I'd spend, you know, $1,500, $2,000 a night. I mean, I had a good time. Don't get me wrong. But golly, man, I mean, the devil kept me trapped because of my spending habits. And so I ended up stopping because I almost got busted. Regional narcotics unit was on to me, and that's a whole nother story. But for like the next 18 months, you know, things started happening around me. This guy, Greg, he started dealing with the people I was dealing with in Texas. He got busted with 600 pounds. He ended up getting 12 years in the Fed joint. And you know, I started selling weed again, but this time, instead of getting it from Texas, I was getting it from Arizona. And when I got that stuff from Arizona, brother, it was really good weed. And the first time I brought it back, man, I was going to charge a guy $1,600 a pound. And he was like, this is hydro. And I was like, yep, $2,400 a pound. And he gave it to me, and I was like, what? I was getting this weed for $5.75 a pound, man. And I was like, this is it. Because I didn't make money like that from Texas weed. I was getting for $5.75 and selling it for, you know, $7.50 or $8.50. You know, I wasn't making the type of money. So I started making, I had a system now where I'd make $242,000 every trip profit. And to me, that money was nothing. You know, I'm 24, 25 years old. You couldn't tell me nothing, brother. And so I did that for, you know, probably a good 4 years, man. And I made, you know, well over $10 million. But at the end of the time, you know, I had millions of dollars in cash. I had a nightclub. I had women. I had cars. I had jewelry. I had Rolex watch, anything you think you could want. But brother, I was depressed, man. And I thought about killing myself, you know, several times. And I remember I was in Chicago with some girl. And I just met the girl. And I was like, come on, let's go to Chicago. And we just drove up there. And I was on this, I don't know, where we was looking over to like that river, whatever it's called, in some hotel. And the devil was like, man, just jump through the window. It'll all be over. You won't have to suffer anymore. And my response to him was, what if I didn't crash all the way through the window? Right? I mean, so that's where I was at, man. And I had millions of dollars, brother. So I realized at a young age that money doesn't make you happy.
Yeah.
And so it was at that moment, not that exact moment, but that same week when I came home, that I just cried out to God, man. And I said, what am I going to do, man? And I pulled open my computer and I found out what, you know, I started learning about our economy, what a GDP was and what was the highest thing in our GDP. And it was real estate transactions at the time. It still may be tech now. I said, that's what I want to do. And within 2 days, man, I bought my first property, brother. I bought it cash. I still own it today. I think I bought it for like $6,000 and renovated it. And I was all in for $38,000. And it reappraised at $95,000. And it reappraised so high, when they looked at it on the auditor, they said, hey, man, we're going to send a second opinion appraisal out because we don't trust this. And it came in at 105. It came in 10,000 higher. Because I gutted it, but I was just so naturally good at doing this.
Yeah.
And my first year, I did 13 of these properties, and I pulled out all my cash plus an extra, I think it was $330,000 on top of that.
DealMachine listeners, I'm wearing my turtleneck not because it's Steve Jobs' birthday, not because Apple just announced they're integrating AI into their phones. Nope, none of that. It's because we're coming up on DealMachine Unveiled, which is our special live presentation where we're unveiling the latest innovation in real estate technology. Last November, we had an unveiled event, and we broke down the house with unlimited skip tracing, which also improved, with our private investigator tool, the accuracy of your skip tracing results by 50%, meaning if you don't get data, you can actually see every person with that homeowner's name all in one spot, in one place. There's no other place you can get that. So come July 1st, reserve your spot. get notified, be among the first to see what's coming next for the real estate industry. The URL, by the way, is DealMachine.com/unveiled.
So I go to my account because at this point I'm trying to figure out, I don't know what they do. I get an account and I call a guy, and so his name is Chuck Vonderhaar, great guy, man. And he took care of me all the way up until I outgrew him about 7-8 years ago. But he passed away last year, unfortunately. But I went to him, I said, Chuck, man, I'm just really concerned, man. I made all this money. I don't know how much taxes I'm going to owe. And so he said, man, come on in, sit down with me. And whatever his fee was, $75 or $100 an hour, whatever back then. And so we start going through, and, I got HUDs and I got everything written out. I mean, nothing, no balance sheet. I didn't know what the heck that was. And so I give it to him, and he starts going through, and he's looking with his glasses, and he's like, well, where's your income? I said, it's on the HUD, man, all the money I got. And he was like, Nate, these are, refinance. I was like, dude, I know, I got like 300 and something thousand out. I was like, how much taxes am I going to owe? And he started laughing, and he said, dude, you don't know taxes? I said, what the hell do you mean I don't know any taxes, man? And it was blown away. I said, hold on, you mean to tell me that I can renovate these properties, pull cash out, my tenants pay the bank back? Now, at that time, I didn't know anything about appreciation or principal reduction, much of it, right? Yeah. And I said, and I don't have to pay taxes on this? He said, no. I said, why the hell isn't everybody doing this, Chuck? He said, that's a good question. That time, brother. And from 2004 to 2010, I had really started moving, and then I had this guy, man, who introduced me to this attorney. This attorney had like 72 units that was doing really bad, and I was like, I can turn them around. And so I didn't know how I was going to turn it around, but I started digging in. I was like, this water bill looks high. Then researching, how much should the water bill be? How many cubic feet of water should a tenant use? The gas bill looks high. I just started doing energy audits, and I didn't even know I was doing energy audits. I was just looking at expenses and saying, hey, this doesn't look right. Within 90 days, man, this is a big attorney, Harvard grad, attorney. And I said, look, dude, I don't work for money. And he was like, what do you mean? I said, dude, if I turn these things around, I want equity. And I ended up getting one of the properties. He ended up giving it to me on a land contract, and I flipped it in 18 months and made $625,000 in profit. He got what he wanted out of it. And then he became an investor. He's like, Nate, he was like, you're amazing. And I didn't know that. I come from a poor school. I got this Harvard attorney telling me that I'm amazing at what I do. And I'm like, well, I must have really tricked him,
Yeah.
Because I didn't understand the value. Like many people, we don't understand the value.
So 2 things for the listeners real quick. You're able to find a property you bought for $30,000 that appraised for $105,000. I want to ask you, how do you do that? Because they're not just sitting on the market usually. And then 2, it seems like you're able to buy that property because you had cash. Most of our listeners are getting into wholesaling, right? They may not have the cash to take down a property like that, but a way to get cash without selling drugs is wholesaling. So do you do any wholesaling?
Yeah, man. So 2 great questions. First off, I paid $6,000 for the house, and I think I paid $4,000 or $6,000 for the house, and I renovated it, and I had 38 in it, right? And so that wasn't my money. I borrowed that money from a private investor. Private investor gave me that money. They charged me 11% interest and 2 points. But in reality, knowing what I know now, and then I'll answer how I found it. Knowing what I know now, if I would have found that deal and put it under contract for $6,000, and I would have went to my private investor, and my private investor said, "Hey man, I'll do it, but I only want to do 75% of the, not the ARV, not the after repair value, which let's say appraised at 100, that would be 75, right? But let's say he's going to say how much total money I have in the deal. I'll give you 70, or let's say he gives me 80% of what I'm going to have in the deal. I just back into the number. I said, well, I really need 40,000, but let me just mark it up and look like I need 60,000. So I may wholesale it to myself for $25,000, meaning that I assign the contract. Now the purchase price is $25,000. And then I bump up the construction cost. And the way you bump up the construction costs is strategically if you don't have any money. And it's a little deeper. I don't want to go too deep, but just real quick. So the very first thing you're going to do on a property is probably, you're going to do drawings, but let's get it outside of drawings because that's going to be something you can't control. Let's say demo. I'm not going to go hire like a professional demo company. I'm going to go get some dumpsters and get guys to do it. I may put that the demo's $5,000, but I got the demo done for $2,500. So, and then I may put the outside landscaping, cleaning up the trees, $6,000. I may got that done for $2,500. Now I just got 2 invoices that I'm turning in to get a draw request. It cost me $5,000, and I'm getting $12,000 back. So I'm front loading those expenses so that I can get money to run the job. It's all about just, look, everybody, what they tend to do in their mind is they tend to come up with a problem. Oh, there's a problem with this. Well, what's the solution? Is there a solution? And if you start to think about solutions instead of problems, that's where the wealth comes. And how I found that property was crazy. So I owned a nightclub, and the police knew me, right? And they knew I was a drug dealer, but I had a nightclub. And then I had bought a property around the corner that I was tearing down. I was tearing this one down, and I was keeping the foundation going to build up on top of it. Well, in the middle of that, the police came and said, hey, man, there's this crappy property around the corner that you guys should go buy and fix up. That's how I found the property, man. Dang. That property. So
that cop should have known that he should have got it under contract and sold it to you.
People don't know what they don't know, brother. And most people just look at a junky property and they think, oh, I wouldn't want to own that. Well, that's the ones that we want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So real quick.
Yeah, that wholesale. Absolutely.
Nate's got to go in like 3 minutes. So just to be respectful.
No, I got some time. I got till 12:30, brother.
That's like 8 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know if you had to go to the bathroom in between calls or anything. Anyway, my point was just Ryan.
Group. It's with my group, man. So,
okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Ryan, ask him any more questions you have. Just want to let you know we've just got a closing time frame.
Yeah, so since we talk a lot about wholesale, what would be, give us a blurb about why wholesale could be important in getting started in this journey.
Wholesale is very important because most of us are trading our time for money, right? And we're going to work for somebody else and make them money. And the skills that we're developing have a fixed amount that we're going to make. Even a doctor, he's going to come in and he's not going to make a whole lot more money 5 years from now than what he's making right now. But if you get into wholesaling and you use DealMachine to go find these deals for you, brother, I'm telling you right now, man, you can go from making $50,000 your first year because you're learning. Second year, $150,000. Third year, $500,000. You can scale. Now you're making $1 million. Your trajectory for growth is off the charts, brother. My biggest deal wholesaling ever, brother, assigned a contract, made $1.3625 billion. Assigning the damn contract.
Jeez.
How do you decide? 540-unit apartment complex, and there were 5 of us that had to split that, but that was a nice payday, man.
That's too advanced for me to grasp. How do you decide?
I was back into the numbers. I knew what it was worth. I called the guy and said, hey, brother, I know you've been looking, can't find a deal. I got a deal. I'm telling you what I want. I want $2,500 markup on each unit. There's 540 units, and I want 10% of the GP. And I said, you got 24 hours, and I need you to put $250,000 hard tomorrow, because that was my term. I didn't want to put the $250,000 down. He had to, right? And I said, you got 24 hours. I got 2 people in Atlanta that are hedge fund people that'll buy this thing up in a minute. There's $8 million profit. Here's the pro forma. Send it to them. There's $8 million profit on it, brother.
How do you want to know? That is wild. How do you know if you're going to wholesale the property or do the BRRRR strategy where you hold it, you do the cash out refinance, you get equity?
Say that one more time. If I'm going to hold it,
how do you decide if you're going to do wholesaling or BRRRR?
I mean, dude, I would have took that property down, but I just bought 500 units. I didn't have capacity. I mean, we could have raised the money, but we didn't have, from a management standpoint and from being able to do the construction, we didn't have any more capacity. So that's what, other than that, we would have took that property down. And then another thing is, if there's no growth in that area, economic growth is dead. Mm-hmm. I don't want anything to do with it. I don't want to spend time nurturing a relationship with the property who's not going to go up in value. He's a disobedient property. He needs to go to another owner.
Yeah, that's where wholesale can come in.
That's where wholesale comes in, or the numbers just don't work. The numbers don't work for it. It can't hit my 1.2 debt service coverage ratio, right? And I can't get on my cash back out. But it's a good deal for somebody because maybe the end a buyer on it isn't looking for cash flow. He's looking to live in it. So different purpose, man. It just doesn't work as a buy and hold for me. I have too much cash stuck in it. I have cash stuck in it. I can't hit a 1.2 debt service coverage ratio. And I don't want to take the chance of buying it, renovating it, and flipping it, because if I get stuck with it, I'm not going to be able to refinance out because it's not going to hit that debt service coverage ratio. So I'd rather mitigate risk, move on, keep it moving.
Yeah.
So, gosh, I mean, a hotel is really crazy. Somebody listening is going to be trying to do their first house deal, right? So wholesaling is good if they don't have capacity or finances to take the deal down themselves and do the BRRRR strategy. That's kind of simplified what you're saying.
Yeah, that's right, man.
Now, I mean, in your group, are a lot of people taking down their first deal, or are they wholesaling their first deal in your group?
Depends. Most of the people that I have are buy and hold. Buy and hold makes you wealthy. Wholesaling will get you to doing that. We do have people that come and don't have any money that want to learn the BRRRR, and I'm like, look, dude, like, we need to teach you to wholesale. You need to get you $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in your bank, dude. You don't need to go do a deal with no money. So people say, oh, you can do a deal with no money. Technically, you can, right? But technically, you can walk to California from Ohio. It's probably not going to do that, right? And so it's hard. And so I like to show people realistically, the first part of the BRRRR is buying distressed real estate, which is exactly what you're doing when you're wholesaling a deal. Go learn how to be an expert at finding off-market deals, because you can go anywhere in the country, you can land, and you can make six figures once you hone that skill. And you can do it working little to none. You don't have to work with the technology that you guys got, brother. With that stuff that you guys got yesterday, man, I was just over in Greece, brother, and they got these vending machines that sell weed. And imagine this, like the machine that you got is like automating weed. It's like, let me go put 50 vending machines all across the county to sell. Yeah, versus standing on one street corner. That's that automation that you guys got is amazing, man.
That's a crazy analogy. I never would.
That's big machine to get a deal.
Brother, you're selling 25.99 euros for 2 grams. I was like, that's 12,000 a pound, man.
That's wild. Well, I will say this. I've always struggled with wanting to cold call because I get my energy from kind of just being alone, and that's a draining activity. And so I never did it. The making those calls with the dialer, with the AI to tell me what to say next, and also leave voicemails as me, it makes cold calling fun because it kind of gets rid of all the energy draining stuff, and then I just have to talk when somebody actually answers. So that it's just made it fun. And I was thinking back to 8 years ago, right? I mean, I'd have $3 million more, I think, if I was calling, because of how efficient and cost effective it is if I started that way, compared to just doing direct mail with a limited budget. So I'm pretty thrilled, and thank you so much for having us to your group. And I know you have to go now.
Hey, listen, David, check this out, man. The thing is this, man. Calling people, talking on the phone all day is draining. And sometimes you just don't want to think. You don't want to think about what to say to the person, right? And so that script that you got, you're like, man, I don't want to think about nothing. I'm reading the script. Because thinking about what to say sometimes is draining.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm married, and no, I'm just kidding. But,
For those listening, Nate, you guys should check out Nate's YouTube channel, Nate Barger. His group is called the BRRRR Invest Academy, or BIA for short, and he's got a podcast called The New American Dream you should check out as well. Yep, BRRRR is on the shirt.
I've used this process here, man, to buy over $500 million in real estate. And I started off with a single family house in the hood, man. So if I can do it, you guys can do it, man. Thank you guys for having me on, man. I appreciate you guys, man. Love you guys. Thank you for everything you do.
Love you too, Nate. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please leave us a review and follow along wherever you're listening to your podcast.